afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Norwich City have been beaten by 3-0 here in North London. A result probably that doesn't tell the whole of the story of the game. Goals from Lucas Moura in the 10th minute, Sanchez in the 67th, and Heung-min Son added icing to that cake on the 77th minute. People will look at this scoreline inevitably and go, it was a game that Norwich City were dominated in, that they were probably reminded of their league position. This was far from it, because for long periods, Norwich City was certainly in this game, and Dean Smith and his side will be looking back on 3 chances in particular that they were left to rue. And that really started after 3 minutes, which we'll get into in just a second to discuss the lineup. Norwich City shifted away from the 4-3-3 that we've seen so much so far under Dean Smith and to a 3-5-2 formation. Smith admitted after the game that was to really match them up numerically against obviously the likes of Lucas Moura, Heung-min Son and Harry Kane. They had a numerical advantage in midfield as well. It was a 3 against the Spurs 2, but also he felt he wanted to cause some problems at the other end, hence why he opted for Adam Idah and Teemu Pukki as a duo up against their 3 centre-backs rather than just one. Of course, that meant sacrificing the 2 wide positions. Josh Sargent was dropped to the bench. Christos Solis was dropped to the bench. There were 3 changes into the side. Andrew Omobamidele came in. Pierre Lees-Malou replaced Lucas Rupp in midfield. And the other one, which would have been Adam Idah coming in, wouldn't it, for Josh Sargent? So a very interesting decision to line up. And for large portions of this game, you have to say tactically there wasn't a large amount in it really. The scoreline probably does suggest this was way more one-sided than it was. Norwich City actually dominated on possession in terms of expected goals, if you're a fan of those, and not everyone is. Spurs got 2.05, Norwich 1.5. So you can maybe say probably a fair reflection of the game would have been maybe a 2-1 defeat for Norwich rather than a 3-0 loss. But this game could have been so much different, radically different for Norwich City this afternoon. Their first major chance of the game came and fell to the man that probably everyone in a Norwich City shirt will want it to fall to, just to that end behind me there in front of that massive single-seater stand. It was brilliant work down the right-hand side. Aarons was involved. Lees-Malou was involved. It came to Adam Idah, who cuts it back perfectly for Teemu Pukki. He stood between the penalty spot and the 6-yard area, sweeps an effort towards goal, and Lloris is just equal to his effort. And that was a massive chance very early on. And if Norwich score that game, suddenly maybe this contest becomes radically different. They didn't, and Pukki didn't score, and it was one of 3 chances this afternoon that would fall to Norwich City's 3 strikers. And it was a chance, as the theme of the day goes on to suggest, that they squandered and that they missed. Brilliant play by Adam Idah in the build-up. There was some talk about him this morning, a report in the Sun newspaper suggesting that Nottingham Forest were interested in taking him on loan. It was therefore interesting to see him start this afternoon. Dean Smith admitted that he's probably lacking game time to an extent, and that was shown in the second half where he just strayed offside a couple of times and maybe lost a little bit of sharpness. And again, that moment in the second half that we'll come back to in just a moment, that he will be ultimately left very frustrated by. But that's Pukki's chance. And then, as is the Premier League, you squander one glorious opportunity at one end, and often your opponents, particularly when they have the quality in the front 3 that Tottenham have, go up the other end and they punish you. And that was certainly the case here. Lucas Moura and Son combined, really slick play to be fair. Dean Smith will be frustrated by some of the defending, I think, when he watches it back. Andrew Omobamidele forced to then go out and engage. Lucas Moura just shrugs him off a little bit too easily, works a yard of space. It's an absolute humdinger into the top right-hand corner of the net. Tim Krul, no chance. And that was the opening goal after 10 minutes. As I said, it's frustrating because you see the video back and Moura almost has the ball in a pocket of space surrounded by 5 coral shirts. And no one really close enough to him to impact him. Omobamidele, I think, will be frustrated that he didn't stop it at source. Lucas Moura just probably shrugged him off a little bit too easily before unleashing that strike into the top corner. But ultimately, up to that point, it had been a very, very bright start by Norwich City. They were knocking the ball around well. They had, as we said, a glorious chance through Teemu Pukki, and then they find themselves 1-0 down at the other end. And from here, you kind of expect the game plan to change and alter, Norwich having to adapt possibly, but it was probably more of the same. Norwich City were keeping possession quite nicely. Between the boxes, they were pretty good, as has been the case for quite a lot of this season so far. But ultimately really struggled to create anything. And then the game set sort of the game sort of status set and settled down. It was Norwich keeping possession, and at half time, Norwich enjoyed 61% of the possession. So that gives you an indication as to how sort of dominant they were in terms of use of the ball. But by the same token, that possession wasn't really converting into any chances. And when they did progress it, Spurs would just nick in and look to counter-attack. And the game really was kind of set by the fact that Norwich were looking to keep possession largely around the back. And then every time they progressed it, usually through Billy Gilmour, they would eventually lose possession. Spurs were just happy to camp in a nice sort of low block, really absorb the pressure, knowing that when the mistake did arrive, they had the quality through Lucas Moura, through Heung-min Son, through Harry Kane, through Ollie Skip, through Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, through the two wing backs, Reguilon when he was on, then Sessegnon, and obviously on the other side Tanganga as well, to really get at them and really cause some problems. And that was really the case in the first half. A lot of knocking on the door from Norwich City without really constructing too much. I'm trying to think what else there was in the first half, really, from a goal scoring perspective. That Timu Pukki chance was the big one. There was also a chance that fell to Andrew Bamidele in the box. I haven't seen it back yet. It hasn't been sort of clipped up in the highlights package that is immediately put out after the game. But there was an opportunity that looked like it just fell for him in the box, but it almost looked like he almost snatched at it a little bit and just really lacked conviction in his strike. And Spurs were then eventually able to clear. And from that opportunity, they went down the other end. And this is what I mean about the Premier League and the ruthlessness of it. They go down the other end. Harry Kane is set away. He looks to lob Tim Krul audaciously, and it just drops the wrong side of the post, unfortunately, for Norwich. And that prevented them going in the break at 2-0 down. And as I said, this was a contest. It felt Norwich City were in the game. It didn't really feel like they were going to get back in the game. I think we could have played until Monday or tomorrow or Tuesday or whatever, and Norwich wouldn't have really created the chance to score the goal. But I think concerning it, people will look at it in isolation and go, oh, well, it was just the chances that they squandered that was crucial to this game. They conceded a lot of chances as well. And there's a naturalness to that because of the quality that Spurs have. But at the same token, it did feel that Norwich were a little bit more open. And whether that was owed to the tactical shift of it, whether it was because of the energy that Spurs have in midfield with Skip and Højbjerg, and they were supporting play very well, I'm not sure. But I look at that Norwich side now, and compared to a few weeks ago when there was someone else in the dugout and when structurally they were set up a lot different, I think this is a more competitive team. And again, there will be people who look at the scoreline and go, oh, well, that was what everyone expected. But for large portions of this game, like I said, from pretty much the start, Lucas Moura's goal, until Sanchez makes it 2-0, Norwich are well in this game, well in this contest. The problem is actually in the final third and creating the chances. And Dean Smith said after the game, he wants the over-reliance on Timu Pukki to stop, to end. There are players that have to step into that. There are players who have to begin to fulfill their potential. And ultimately, this was an issue that will fall to Norwich City's coaches to attempt to resolve. There are obviously a few matches before January, so Norwich just can't snap their fingers and welcome a new striker into the building. They spent nearly £9 million on Josh Sargent, and that's a player who is increasingly looking like he's struggling to get to grips with the Premier League and maybe the standard required. And again, we'll come back to him. Adam Ida, again, elements of his game were pretty good. There was one nice bit of hold-up play in the first half where he took the ball in, he felt the contact of the defender behind him, and then found Billy Gilmour, who looked for the overlapping Williams, and that cross eventually led to a corner, I think. So there were nice moments within there, but ultimately there's still a rawness that underpins everything that Adam Ida does. He does lack the goal scoring now that we are so accustomed to a Timu Pukki, for example. And whether that means that in January we'll see a loan, or whether that means that we're going to see him now get a run of games in a chance to improve that kind of lack of match fitness that Dean Smith spoke about, I'm not too sure. But he had an opportunity. It fell his way. This, again, at 1-0. Brilliant play by Brandon Williams to almost commit the defender down this left-hand side, surges into the box, cuts the ball back. Timu Pukki slices the effort with the kind of outside of his boot. It falls beautifully for Adam Ida. He can't be more than 8 yards out from goal. He has to respond quickly, so I'm probably giving him a little bit more leeway than I'm giving to Timu Pukki and Josh Sargent. But he just, on the stretch, fails to really make a solid contact with it. But, you know, we look at strikers, we look at chances that Norwich City are getting this season. They're not going to get many better than the 3 they got today. And that second one from Adam Ida just lacked a little bit of conviction. Maybe didn't respond to it as quickly as he needed to. Snapped at it a little bit. But I think everyone in this ground was probably expecting Norwich City to equalise in that moment. And we look at moments within games, a massive chance for Norwich City. That would have made it 1-1. The whole complexion of the game there changes. And it wasn't long after that Spurs got their second goal. It was Heung-min Son's corner. It hits Gibson in an unfortunate area. He goes to the ground. And as is Norwich's luck this season, it just sits up perfectly for Davinson Sanchez, who makes no mistake. It's a really classy finish from close range. It kind of hits it and it rises into the net past Tim Krul. And that doubles Spurs' advantage this afternoon. And from there, really, it kind of felt like Norwich City were beaten. And they struggled really to create too much. The major chance fell for Josh Sargent. Again, I think this might have come at 3-0, actually. Pukki does really well on the right. And works his way into the area. He cuts it back for Sargent. And as we've seen so far this season, I don't know if it's a lack of confidence. I don't know if it's quality, but he goes to hit the shot and manages with his right foot to hit the shot, which then hits the back of his standing foot. Really messy, really unfortunate, not particularly great. And then Son Heung-min wraps it up. Brilliant play by Spurs to work their way into the Norwich box. Son just works a yard off Gibson, fires it into the bottom corner of the net. I've watched it back. Max Aarons is on the line. He does get something on it, but not enough to clear it away from the goal, and it ricochets into the back of the net for 3-0. And that was the story of the game, really. Norwich huffed and puffed. They're just really lacking quality in the final third, and it's hard to see at this moment in time with this group of players how they're going to score enough goals to get themselves out of the issue, because defensively at the moment things have improved. A 3-0 goal scoring, a 3-0 loss rather, doesn't suggest that, but they have. I think you watch them in general play. Their shape is a lot better. What they do off the ball is a lot better. Ultimately, it is the other end that is really costing them, because on the evidence of today, they've had 3 glorious chances, amassed an XG of 1.05 and come away without a single goal. And that is the single most area. And we saw, didn't we, when Dean Smith came in, he set a checklist of what he wanted Norwich City to improve on, limit the chances created. We saw that again in the last couple of games. I don't think we saw it the case here, but as I said, there is kind of expectancy to Spurs creating chances at home under Antonio Conte with the quality of attackers they've got. But I looked at the team sheet actually before the game, a back three of Eric Dyer, Davinson Sanchez and Ben Davies. You've got a fullback playing out of position, Eric Dyer, who hasn't exactly set the world alight as a centre-back here. A lot of his good football under Pochettino arrived as a defensive midfielder. And Davinson Sanchez, again, who there's been question marks over, and Norwich City didn't cause them enough problems. And they did create the chances to do that here today. And Norwich score all 3. We could be talking about a 3-3 draw. We could be talking about, again, a completely different game if Teemu Pukki scores or if Adam Ida converts the equaliser. And Josh Sargent, again, just not really looking up to the quality that Norwich City need at this moment in time. And it's very difficult to see where that's going to come from internally in this group. And obviously with the January window opening in the next few weeks, I wonder if Dean Smith will be knocking on Stuart Webber's door and asking for a striker, because that does seem what Norwich City need to do at the moment, because the players that we all want to join the party at the moment aren't quite doing that. Just over to the player ratings then. The only player who got a 7 from me today was Grant Hanley. I thought he shepherded Harry Kane very, very well. Kane had chances. There was one... There was a chance that led to Sanchez's corner, actually, where he just worked a yard in the D, hit a shot, looked destined for the bottom corner. And Tim Krul expertly just turns it around the post. And then obviously Spurs subsequently go on to score the corner. There was a nice moment in the second half where Kane was played over the top. Hanley recovered, nicked the ball off him, and then won a free kick. That was excellent. I just thought generally he defended pretty well against a striker who was being linked with silly money against with Manchester City in the summer. So Grant Hanley gets a 7 from me. A lot of 6s, I have to say. Tim Krul gets a 6. Omobamidele got a 6. Didn't think he did a massive amount wrong. There were a couple of moments in possession where probably made the wrong decision or so. And again, his involvement in the Lucas Moura goal probably hampers what was overall a relatively quiet, okay performance. 6 for Gibson as well. Williams, Kenny McLean, Billy Gilmore and Max Aarons. Nothing really to shout about. 5s for Teemu Pukki and Adam Ida, who, again, as a striker, ultimately, when the dust settles, you're going to be judged on goals. They had 2 glorious opportunities and didn't take them. Kieran Dowell as well gets a 5 when he came on. Didn't really affect the game in the way that Dean Smith would have hoped, although Norwich were already 2-0 down by the point he entered the pitch. And then a 4 for Josh Sargent, who I thought really struggled when he came on, to be honest. And I'm not trying to make this a kind of blame game, because there were plenty of Norwich's players who are under par today. As I said, I felt overall the performance was okay. It wasn't too bad. It wasn't too shabby. Norwich were in the game for large periods. They were competitive. But again, we're looking at key moments in both boxes. Sargent missed the sitter, Pukki missed the sitter, Ida missed the sitter, and defensively they didn't quite do enough on either the Sanchez goals or the Son goals. So there we go, a 3-0 defeat ultimately. Norwich City bottom of the Premier League. Still 3 points from 17th. Watford have a very tricky game as well next week. Norwich City welcome Manchester United to Carrow Road in the late game. We may get a clearer picture of the bottom 3 and quite what that looks like by then. Of course, if you're yet to download and subscribe to our Pink and Plus app, please do that. You get 2 months free. So essentially, you don't pay a penny until February. Just give it a look, check it out, see if you like the content on there. It will then be $1.99 from thereafter. Plenty of exclusive content and whatnot to come. Although you won't be losing these video verdicts, they'll remain on our YouTube pages as well. Pinken.com, the place to go. Plenty of reaction and analysis as well. A magnificent stadium, it has to be said, but sadly not quite the result Norwich City wanted. Thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening.